Good morning and welcome to another episode of Chip Chat, my occasional gaming program where I talk to other YouTubers. And today I've got Grant with me, and I've also got the guys from GameCast, or at least two of them. I've got Sully and I've got The Count, otherwise known as Snowy. Say hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
The ones that matter. Salt. No.
And what we're going to be talking about today is where gaming's going to be in 5 years' time and then subsequently in 10 years' time. So it's basically a bit of wild speculation on our behalf, or on our part, I should say. And hopefully you guys will find this interesting. So first off, where are we going to be in 5 years' time?
Nowhere, because the world's going to have ended.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think you've got a thing about this. I think maybe you're looking forward to it, Count, rather than anything else. You keep talking about the world ending, mate.
I look forward to embracing the sweet hold of death.
You belong to one of these doomsday cults, don't you? Really?
Yeah.
God. So, just assuming that the world hasn't ended in 5 years' time, where do you think we're going to be in 5 years' time with gaming, Count?
GTA 6 will have come out and dominated the world, probably.
Yeah, that's a safe bet, yeah.
Yeah. The loot box nations will have risen up and attempted a coup on the governments of the world.
Loot box nations.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me put
EA becomes
couple
a
of
nation.
things out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to be into full swing with the next console generation.
But will it be a generation?
Ooh.
Well, this is interesting because I've heard some stuff. Obviously, we know that Microsoft are going to go with backwards compatibility with their next generation of consoles. But I've heard some little whisperings that they might be going with forward compatibility as well. Or put another way, things like the Xbox that we're currently using will continue to be usable. So it'd be more like with phones, where things become obsolete over time rather than just being a hard stop. So I don't know whether that's going to actually transpire, but that's an interesting one if that happens, because it means that you'll be able to move into the next generation, especially if you've got an Xbox One X.
Or a PS4 Pro, because it seems, it's a waste of money otherwise.
Yeah. It looks... Sorry, go on, Sully.
So Bombshell, the last generation was a 360, and this is 5 years in the future, Joe.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, wow, man, that's so deep.
So in effect, if you look at it like that, especially for Microsoft, if this does come to pass, and rumors, so take it as you will. But if this does come to pass, we've already seen the last generation, certainly for Microsoft.
That's firmly where my feet and beliefs lie, I think, Joe. Absolutely. I think the Xbox One was kind of like nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. I don't think anybody else knew what they were doing, but they kind of soft rebooted into this seamless transition between generations. But I think the ultimate goal is to get away from that mindset of being forced to invest into new hardware and opening up avenues and options to just retain install base, basically. Because you don't want to force people to make the jump, because you can't force all of them to make the jump.
No.
People stay or they get off, so they want to eliminate the jump.
And that would be an interesting one in terms of being able to keep your user base as well, because if you look at Microsoft, if they do this, and I keep saying this, it's not guaranteed, but if you're looking at Sony, if Sony decide to go with a hard stop and their next console, the PS5, we're looking at backwards compatibility, but they're probably not looking at forwards compatibility. They're not looking at the games that we currently own, going forward. Sorry, the new games going on the old console, I should say. Yeah. So, if you've got a PS4 Pro, you're probably not going to be playing the new games that are coming out for the PS5, I should say.
Yeah.
But that means that their install base is starting over again. And I know a lot of people are going to move across. But with Microsoft, with a roughly 40 million install base, they would give them a head start, if you see what I mean.
That's just it, Joe. Is a 40 million install base, or do you start counting in all of Windows 10? Do you start counting in Nintendo
Well,
Switch owners?
It's
Do you
guesswork,
start
isn't
counting
it?
in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, they're changing the game. And I mean, in terms of forwards compatibility, you know, it might be a case of maybe for the Xbox One and the original PS4, because they both, you know, they're on PC architecture. But I think like this kind of ties back into that rocky start of transitioning from generations. You know, these are the existing PS4 and Xbox One are the beginning of the transition away from making those jumps. So I think you're correct, Joe, and I guess the internet's correct in terms of forwards compatibility. Is the first time I'm hearing of it, but it makes sense. You know, it's going to operate exactly like PC hardware. You know, you're not locked into generations. The only generations you have are like the soft limitations of your GPU in terms of its flexibility.
So it'll probably be a case of, you know, like there's not going to be a big step up in performance. So the next console, they're going to just do sort of smaller, more frequent increments of performance jump.
Yeah,
I think it's got.
Well, the interesting.
I think it'll be.
Sorry, I was going to say the interesting thing for me was seeing the specs of the lower end new Xbox. You got the two Anaconda and Lockhart. The lower of the two there. Looking at the specs for it, actually looks like some of the specs on there may be lower than the Xbox One X, which would tie directly into this. It would just be a lot cheaper than the new consoles. So that would seem to suggest that they might go along this route. I don't,
Is that because they're going to use the xCloud technology more, so that the hardware specs become less important? I mean, I don't.
Well, that looks like the next big thing, doesn't it?
That
was going to be the next thing I was going to ask about. Yeah.
Just to comment on the fragmentation of options, I think it's not. Obviously we're going to see it stepping forward, but I think the mindset of Microsoft is to have well-defined value propositions for different demographics of people, right? And I mean, demographic is in affordability and what you want out of the machine. I don't think it's necessarily about every single time dropping the most powerful console that's going to obliterate your wallet. Like, it's about smart console options going forward, and making that transition definitely seamless and not forced.
I think if you look at, and we're sort of concentrating a bit on Microsoft at the moment, and I want to ask a little bit more about PlayStation in a sec. But if you look at Phil Spencer, and he's always saying things like, if you look at music and you look at films and the way they're distributed, he obviously is looking at this. And I look at hi-fi and I think you've got your middle ground, and then you've got your high end and all the rest of it. But you can play all, and I've said this countless times, and it's because that's what Phil Spencer keeps saying. But if you look at it like that, offering these value propositions across different levels, ranging from a low-end console to a high-end console right up to a high-end PC. If you can play your games on all of those and then add in phones and stuff as well, and you can play across the board, that's a definite advantage, I think. That's and I think that's where what they're looking to do. That would seem to make sense.
Absolutely correct. I mean, you just have to look at the trends in terms of how we're consuming like you said, music and film and TV shows like Netflix. It's not about what you're watching it on. It's about how big your subscriber base is. So the more platforms they open up and the easier it is for people to get in, then that's it. That's the future. They don't care about what hardware you're playing it on. Why do you think we're seeing a fucking app on the Nintendo Switch? They don't give a fuck. It's not about the hardware.
Netflix would be doing much worse if they had a special Netflix box.
Absolutely.
As opposed to
absolutely
on everything.
Yeah. It might be dead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next question is, where do you think Sony will be in all this? Because I actually think that maybe Sony have got their eye on this as well. I don't think that Sony are quite as reticent as maybe they appear to be, and I can't remember, was it Sean Layden who gave an interview recently, and he said we're looking at a post-console future.
Yes, it's all very pally, wasn't it?
All the time.
Yeah, my mate Phil and me were having a conversation.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing is, Microsoft are trying to change the conversation away from the hardware. It's like Sully just touched on this, because they want to make it more about a services model, like we talked about with Netflix. The thing with Sony is still going, I think, for this next generation, are still going to sort of say the hardware is still important for now, but they're not silly. They're watching the trends, in the market, and they could well move in the same direction. But I think they're sort of playing their cards close to the chest at the moment in terms of what they're going to be doing after maybe PS5. But we'll see a PS5, we'll see a next generation of hardware from Sony. But after that, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see, because Microsoft have changed the kind of conversation around the console, these idea of console generations. And I think Sony are going to have to move in that direction if that's where the market moves.
Yeah. So you touched on.
Let's not forget as well that Sony. Sorry, Sully, go on.
Just really quickly, I think Grant touched on a really important point: is that Sony is observing the market, whereas Microsoft is leading the market. So they're always going to be reactionary, and they seem to be on the surface from an outsider's perspective to be reluctant to move away from the existing structure, which is like defined console generations, because it's hardware and defined console generations seems to be where they're happy, and they can control that. Like, that's what they know, that's their bread and butter, and they're doing really well in that realm. So I think from the outside perspective, in terms of infrastructure and services that they can offer compared to Microsoft, I think they're not only on the back foot, but I don't think they're going to be able to implement it as well as what Microsoft will and what they already are doing.
I feel like what's Sony are going to do is what Microsoft did at the start of this generation, is that they're going to fumble the ball. Because in terms of, at the moment, in terms of things like numbers, in terms of game sales, Sony are doing better than Microsoft in terms of their console.
Oh, by some way,
By some way, exactly. And that's because of the way that Microsoft started off the generation. Microsoft are probably, from a consumer standpoint, doing better now. Maybe not in terms of like exclusive games, but in terms of what they've been doing with their platform, they're doing better things than Sony. But I feel like Sony are going to start the next generation, if we do indeed have it as a next generation, on the back foot because of their current attitude towards their standing as a company.
So almost their own success in this generation is almost going to hold them back.
See, I'm not sure.
Much like it did at the end of the PS2 era. They started the PS3 era really on the back foot because they were so like, look at us, we did amazing with the PS2.
That was stupid mismanagement, to a certain degree, with their CEO saying, "I'll just get a second job to buy our console." Things like that kind of annoy your consumer base. So it'd be interesting. I think what I understand what you're saying, but I think it'd be interesting to see how consumers react. Do they still want the next hardware box? This next generation, because yes, I
think hardcore gamers maybe do, but I'm not sure that the massive gamers.
Well, 90 million have bought the PS4.
Especially not if this forwards compatibility thing is a thing.
True.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, everybody's always going to want the next box, right? If your wallet can afford it. Like that. That's not going away, though. That's always going to be the case. There'll always be a next Xbox and PlayStation coming out. But
I agree with that.
Sony is going to fail to grasp about that is the services surrounding it and the forwards and backwards compatibility. I think that's going to be their issue. Like, obviously, there's an next Xbox coming. But I quickly touch back on Count. Sorry, I know I just quickly interjected. Quickly touch back on what Count said was, I'm not 100% sure or convinced it's going to be a case of them being arrogant entering the next generation and mismanaging everything and being stuck in their ways. I'm sure that'll be present a little bit. I kind of feel like it might be a case of they almost can't compete at the same level at the moment with Microsoft, with all the avenues they're going down.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. If as the market changes, I think that Microsoft are better set for it. I also think, and something struck me when I was looking into this, something Microsoft, or somebody said about Microsoft some time ago now, was that they're not looking at Sony as their competitor. They're looking at Google, Amazon, people like that as their competitors. Apple, that's who they see as their competitors in many respects. And if you look, and I was talking to you guys before we started about the fact that we've got Microsoft are probably going to be talking more about their xCloud project at GDC. But we've also got Amazon are probably going to talk about their new gaming project at GDC as well. And it does look, sorry, not Amazon, Google.
Yeah.
And it does look like Amazon, Google, and others are looking to move into this market. And it looks like they're going to be looking to move into streaming. Now, obviously, a lot of us don't like the idea of streaming, but I see it's going to be the future. And I think that as we move into, if you want to call it a generation, however you look at it, I think we're going to start, as we move into this generation, as we move towards the next 5 years, we're going to see streaming become a much bigger thing. And I don't know what you guys make of that. Do you think we're going to see Amazon, Google, and others move into this market?
Yes.
Given how much money there is in the gaming market.
They're definitely going to move into it, but whether or not it takes off might be a different story.
Yeah. Joe, when we talk about streaming and cloud gaming and all that kind of stuff, and you look at Xbox in comparison to PlayStation, Nintendo, obviously Xbox, Microsoft have a vastly superior infrastructure in terms of Xbox Live and their know-how of software and how it all works. Like, they're just better suited for it, at the moment at least.
Yeah.
But when you change the game and they start thinking about Google and Amazon, maybe not Amazon, but definitely Google, in terms of being competition, if we're moving into an online realm of gaming with infrastructure being cloud gaming and delivering online, who do you think has the better leverage and pushing power and knowledge of online infrastructure than Google?
Yeah.
Well, exactly, yeah.
So they absolutely should be thinking about them. The only thing I would
counterpoint with that is that if you look at Amazon, they own Twitch, which is a really good way of pushing if you want to push product. We look at the way YouTube sells gaming, and you've got all these YouTubers who are, they go and play a game and all the kids go and play the game. And I think if you look at moving forward, Twitch is going to get bigger and bigger and more influential. And it's no coincidence that Microsoft have set up their own platform. It's to sell. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
I mean, if we want to...
So, yeah, I mean...
Sorry, Joe, go for it.
No, I was going to say, I kind of agree with you. I think that Google... Maybe not to the same extent Amazon, but I do think that Amazon, they've already set up gaming studios, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So I think they're both looking to move into this market.
Well, I mean, why
it
not?
Would be stupid not to, given the size of it.
They've never been about hardware, and we're moving away from a hardware future. Like, we have boxes coming out left, right, and center in different varieties, but the actual hardware is the stopgap transition element. Like, eventually would fucking dongle your phone up. Like, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be streaming from the cloud. It doesn't matter what you're using to get it on your screen, right? So as soon as you remove that hardware aspect, of course Google wants to jump in and get a slice of the subscription services, because they've removed their obstacle. They don't have to enter the hardware realm. It's all online and it's all server end.
Yeah, I mean, the video game market just keeps growing year on year, so it's inevitable that these
Hollywood,
big companies want a slice of it. I mean, Amazon are already invested. They provide their servers for a lot of online games. I think DICE use a lot of Amazon's cloud computing. So they've already got an investment in the games industry, but they want to be coming at it from a more direct route in future. I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very... cautious of Google if I was Microsoft and everybody else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would. The only advantage I think that Microsoft has got, and Phil Spencer touched on this in a recent interview, and I think Sony have got this advantage and Nintendo have got this advantage in spades, is catalogue.
Brand recognition.
They've got the catalogue.
Yeah.
I feel like...
And Phil Spencer said, it's hard to break into this market. Yeah. Sorry, Count, go on.
I feel like particularly with Nintendo, when it comes to catalogue, they have a great opportunity to sell themselves on a cloud-based platform with their back catalogue.
Yeah.
They could go.
The problem.
They could do a Game Pass type subscription, but it's cloud gaming, and go, you have access to this back catalogue if you pay us so much money a month, because they've got so many properties and individual games just sitting there that they could do something with.
And they're shit at online, so let's face it, they need help.
Well, yeah, that's the real downside for them. I think, if you look at Sony, let's not forget, Sony actually got into the streaming market before Microsoft did. And I agree with you, Sully. I don't think they've got the same level of infrastructure that Microsoft have. I think it's self-evident that Microsoft have a better infrastructure. But they did get into it first.
They invented a big PC market. So they might have some sort of advantage in that area.
Wait a minute, the DirectX box. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, and I've said this before, if you look back on that, and I always think a lot of gamers miss the point with Microsoft. If you look back on Microsoft, the Xbox was always about getting Microsoft products into the living room, into every room in the home. It wasn't about the Xbox itself. It was about selling them selling people your software. And they haven't changed. That's been their primary goal all the way along. And, the Xbox is, to them, it's almost a secondary thing. It's about selling you that product. Phil Spencer said it absolutely clearly in an interview recently. You don't make the money on the hardware. You make the money on the services and the software. That's where it's all
I think
at.
what's interesting now as well, Joe, is that it's no longer about the individual pieces of software or anything else they could sell. It's about lumping all of that in to one service and selling one thing, and increasing that one thing's value proposition and making it accessible to as many people as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Joe,
and I think you touched on it.
So I was just going to say, Joe, could we at some point talk about the Xbox app appearing on the Switch as well, and maybe what the mentality is behind Microsoft and even Nintendo regarding that? Because that's actually quite interesting, I think.
Again, you're reading my mind, because that's something I wanted to bring up as well, yeah.
One thing quickly, though, on the cloud gaming front, if the gaming market does try and lean towards cloud gaming, this reminds me very much of when the Xbox One was first announced and they were having a big thing about, you can't use pre-owned games in this machine. It won't accept them. And then a lot of retailers kicked up a stink, because that's where they make most of their money, a lot of game retailers, and said, if you do that, we're not going to stock your console. So
the thing is, though,
that maybe if they sort of pivot towards cloud gaming and away from physical media, like discs or whatever else they decide to go with, would that possibly make the console itself more difficult to sell, because a lot of retailers might not stock it?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. I think I'm not discarding your point or anything like that. Personally, in my opinion, I don't think it matters, because I think they will always find a way to get the hardware into your home, even if they have to fucking mail it out to you.
You say that, but Microsoft backed down.
They did then.
When the Xbox One,
look
they
at
backed
the
down
state.
on that.
Look at the state of GameStop now.
Yeah,
These brick and mortar stores have no weight behind them. They are like a dying breed. So do you think they're going to bow down next time? They'll be like, no, we are going to finish you off.
Yeah.
I think they'll bow down this time, but I think it's diminishing returns.
Well, I mean, GameStop might be gone by the fucking time the next consoles come. If we're talking 2021,
GameStop's doing particularly badly.
Man, if GameStop goes, like, who else is gonna step up and fill those shoes? No one, because it'd be like fucking opening a Blockbuster or a VHS store. Like, nobody's gonna fill those shoes.
Exactly.
It'll just be the second-hand stores, I think.
Yeah, I mean, second-hand retail will always welcome the hardware in, no matter what. Like the smaller guys, the independent guys, they will always welcome it. They won't care about what's happening in the online DRM situation. They'll just want to sell the consoles, and take what they can get that remains of this dying market.
Yeah. So let me just move that to the edge of 5 years' time. Do we think that the brick and mortar stores are going to be, they're going to continue to decline? If we look at the things like Microsoft xCloud, Game Pass, which I think Game Pass is almost like a forerunner to xCloud. I think it's, at the moment, we have to download the games. I think that was a smart move. Yeah. But if you look at, we are even moving into things like 5G, and they're talking about low latency gaming via the phone networks and stuff like this. Whether that comes to pass, I don't know. But we are looking at a world where everything's moving to online. We're looking at digital downloads, streaming, all these kind of things. In 5 years' time, how do you think we're going to be consuming our games in 5 years?
I think still predominantly on hardware.
Is going to be, yeah. I think the physical market, though, is going to be almost exclusively for the hardcore and the collectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you'll have the
that.
exclusive collector's edition, and then even then you'll get a you buy the quote unquote physical copy, and it'll probably just come with a download code.
Yeah, which we're already seeing, aren't we?
I think
exactly.
it'll be I think Count's 100% right. I think we're going to be predominantly digital, but we'll still be playing on hardware. And I think a lot more of us, though, will be dabbling in streaming. And whatever the offerings services are. I mean, we've heard a lot about xCloud, and I'm assuming it's probably going to drop in Microsoft's next run at whatever their next lineup of consoles are. And I think
that PS Now is a lot better than it used to be as well. So maybe that
we're almost there.
Yeah,
they're almost there now. Yeah. But I think things like xCloud and all that. I think it's just going to natively integrate into the branding we already have. So it will be Game Pass, and if you want to download it, you can. If you want to stream it, you can. And xCloud will just fall into the background. It'll just still be Xbox Live.
Yep, I agree. That's exactly how I see it. And I think, if you're looking at Sony, how do you think... I see Sony going along the same route. I'm not... Again, we're going back on old ground, but I don't see them necessarily doing it as quickly or as well. But I do think they're going to be forced into going along that route. What about Nintendo, though? How are they going to manage? Because you wanted to talk about Xbox Live and, Game Pass and that coming to the Switch.
That's interesting, because I think Nintendo aren't planning on partaking in what's happening at the moment. And you might think that's crazy, but that's what they've always done. Exactly. I don't think they want to partake in streaming or moving away from hardware immediately. Like, if they have to, I think they'll provide a digital shop for all of their games. But I think they know that they're always going to be about hardware, and they know that because they're innovative with their hardware. Yeah. And that's what sells their hardware. It's not a gimmick. The Switch has real value in regards to why you should own one, whereas the other competition, like the boxes, they don't. It's just a means to play your game. It doesn't change the experience. Nintendo
have proven that you can be innovative and not make the discussion all about power in your console. It's about versatility, flexibility, ubiquity even, so they will continue to do their own thing, I think, because that's kind of what they do best. They innovate with controllers, they innovate with hardware, and people like it. You look how successful the Switch is. So for the time being, I can't see them moving over to a streaming model. I mean, look how slow they were to sort of change their mind on YouTube and YouTube creators and allowing their games, to be sort of shown on YouTube.
There's a very real harmony within Nintendo that isn't. It's about the games and the hardware. Being in harmony with each other and complementing each other. And I think if you take one away, Nintendo might as well, they lose their value, I think. They might as well just become a software developer and leave the hardware game altogether.
Yeah,
and even then, I think you'd see it decline, the quality. It's something that would just be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not in a position to turn into Sega yet, because they haven't failed as much as Sega did. So that's one reason not to. But yeah,
I know a lot of people thought they were close to it with the Wii U, and then they came out with the Switch, and people changed their minds.
Somebody crunched the numbers on that.
I thought the Switch was going to fail.
Yeah, we all did, because we thought it'd be underpowered, it would be half baked, but here we are. Yeah. There was an interesting number that got crunched regarding when people were saying that Nintendo was going to fold after the Wii U.
Their losses, they could keep up those losses for 50 years.
They're so cash rich as a company because of the 3DS, basically. It's
yes. So, I mean, Nintendo, they have the breathing room to fuck around for as many years as they want, whereas somebody like a Sony doesn't. But I think the interesting contrast is I think Sony will get dragged kicking and screaming because they have to. And Nintendo will be quite happy to forge their own path that I think will not only be the right decision for them, but I think it'll actually work.
I think Nintendo benefit from being a company that does one thing. The problem with Sony is they're multifaceted, and the PlayStation division is kind of propping them up financially. Yeah. So you're right. They don't have the leverage to kind of experiment, really, but Nintendo do. And that's the benefit.
Yeah, let's not forget, you might think this is a bunch of dribble, but Nintendo, they consider themselves to be a toy company. And that's reflected a lot of the time in what they sell. The console is one thing that they sell, but they sell heaps of other stuff and gadgets and all this crap. But then the console itself is, I would class it as the Switch. It's like an attractive, appealing device, and you play on it. So it is like a toy. So I think as long as they maintain that, they don't have to go down the same path. In fact, they can probably go further away from the other two. But I think what is really interesting about Nintendo and Microsoft's now seeming unison is like, why? So why is Nintendo okay with their Xbox app being on their device when usually they're quite walled off? And I mean, we know why Microsoft wants it on there, because they want to increase their install base for their service. That's probably inevitably coming, cloud gaming. But what does that do for Nintendo? What's their thought process there? Are they? Because for me, I think it's about dropping the walls down a little bit. But for them, it needs to be about increasing the value proposition of the one entity that matters to them at any given point in time. And I think having an Xbox catalog on that device does that for them. You know, so you've just doubled, you know, the amount of games people have access to. So I think it increases the value proposition of the Switch, because all of a sudden you can take all your Xbox games on the go. So I don't know. I think I wouldn't mind picking their brains about why they're okay with Xbox being on their device. But that's what I suspect.
It might also be that it gives them a foothold in that sort of new market, if you like, because Microsoft have got a lot of expertise in things like streaming and stuff like this. They are putting a lot of money into it. You know, they are one of the preeminent companies in these areas, and Nintendo simply aren't. So maybe Nintendo are looking at it as, you know, they could piggyback onto the infrastructure, if you like. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating on that.
I mean, what I want to believe...
The other thing...
Sorry, Joe, go for it.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I mean, what I want to believe is that both of these companies are genuine and want to be prosperous together. So, you know, Nintendo aren't set up for this digital future. So, you know, there's an olive branch that's gone out and they're trying to partner up and strengthen each other. You know, all ships rise type situation. That's what I want to believe.
It could be just a pragmatic decision from Nintendo to plug a gap in their knowledge and in their, you know, in their expertise, and they see Microsoft as being the possible solution to that. You know,
let's not forget that Nintendo tried to partner with Sony back in the day, and that all went tits up. But they're not averse to doing it. You know, if they think someone's got some tech that they haven't got, they're not averse to trying.
I think they were a different company then, weren't they? They were less open then in terms of accepting outside ideas. Yeah.
Let's not forget they're on smartphones now as well, so they are open to having.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to mention. Yeah, they're definitely looking to move into that area, but you know, I don't know whether it's a Japanese thing, whether it's a Nintendo thing, but they tend to be quite cautious, and they're not going to go. American and Japanese business minds are quite different. You know, America sort of goes in guns blazing and hopes everything works out. The Japanese tend to be a lot more cautious and take their time and see if it's going to work as a market. And I think Nintendo are a good exemplar of that, if you like.
I mean,
so I don't think they're averse to doing it. I just think they want to be careful.
Yeah. The thing is, a lot of the time, most companies in Japan have been running for decades, if not centuries. They don't take huge risks like American companies do, but that means they gain a steady profit and aren't crashing out. That's why so many companies in Japan have been around for so long, is because they play it safe enough that it all works.
Their CEOs actually do their jobs.
They do something.
Yeah, they're willing to take pay cuts from the top if they need to.
Yeah. Well, we saw that, didn't we see that at Nintendo, I think, when they were failing?
Satoru Iwata took a 50% pay cut when... I think
Twice, wasn't it?
He took two 50% pay cuts in a row.
Can't imagine Andrew Wilson doing
people. No. Do you know what that's the thing? What he said to justify is like, if the employees will not work to make great games, they will not work their best if the idea of them being fired or laid off is there in their minds.
Yeah.
And he said he literally refused to lay people off because it's like, that's not going to help the company morale.
Yeah.
I would rather take the pay cut because I am earning a lot of money as it is.
Oh my God, a CEO sees the big picture.
The amount of money.
Exactly.
God, who'd have thought it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is precisely what he's paid to do.
Exactly, make these decisions,
Right, so anyway, let's. I just want to ask you one more thing, and then we'll wrap it up for this part of it, and then move on to 10-year predictions.
Good grief.
So the big question is, who, if anyone, do you think is going to dominate out of the big three? And do you think that somebody else might come in and maybe dominate, or at least get a large share of the market?
Microsoft.
I'm going to say Nintendo.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, interesting.
They never quote unquote dominate. They're the sort of ones that they're doing their own thing, and they just it always seems to work out better in the end, even if they have their odd slip-ups.
Yeah.
I think I'm firmly in the Microsoft camp only because of what I think they're already doing. But I think they've spent the entirety of this generation setting up for the next. So, I mean, it's if they fail off the back of that, then fuck me. If they're going to fail, what chance does anybody else have when they're already putting the writing on the wall?
Yeah. I think they've done well to pivot from like the disastrous launch of the Xbox One into like being more forward thinking in terms of what the future of console game is going to be. Definitely.
It depends how you define the success, though, I think, Joe, because like that question.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, are we talking about install base, copies of games sold, like subscriber base? Like it just depends how you define it. But I mean, in terms of being the largest garden for video games that makes money, I think Microsoft will do the best next generation, purely because they're expanding aggressively onto so many different platforms, and they're just probably waiting to flick the switch.
That would be my thought as well. I think maybe early on Sony are going to do really well because they've got some great games coming still, and I think that their user base, their install base is so big that people are going to move over to the PS5. They're not going to be so likely to jump ship.
Can I also...
But
sorry,
if Microsoft... Sorry, go on.
Just to quickly put a little cherry on mine was to think about what people want to play as well. So at the moment, everybody loves, and you reminded me of this, Joe, when you were talking about PlayStation exclusives. People value those exclusives, but most of them are single player, right? So how do people want to play in the future? Because I think Microsoft believe it's about interconnectivity across devices. You know, they're eliminating the wall. But if Sony want to remain the walled off device, then, you know, do you want those single player experiences, or have people moved into games as services and online experiences and playing with friends across devices seamlessly? So I think that's...
People have not moved into games as a service, as shown by the fact that a lot of games as services are not doing very well.
Yeah, good point.
Not specifically the looter shooter or that particular game as service, but like a living service where you can play games. You know, it's all interconnected.
Right.
Online experiences. It's not about the single player experience per se that sells a system. It's about the interconnectivity and playing with friends, right?
And I think that's a really important distinction. You know, the games as service isn't the same as the service model. A lot of the time people talk about them interchangeably, and they're not the same thing at all. I think increasingly we're going to see the service model, you know, a la Netflix, Amazon Prime, that kind of thing within gaming. Yeah. But I agree with Count on, you know, games as service.
It's
how many people...
It's a cruddy model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still going to be a big thing in 5 years' time?
I think they'll...
Probably not.
I think they'll either get it right real fucking quick, or it's going to be a fad and a flavor.
I think what's going to happen is that as soon as a lot of these things that are marketed at the moment as games as service stop being supported, then the bubble's going to burst immediately. Because people are going to look at it and go, oh point. Shit, I paid so much money for this, and now it's just dead.
And the thing is, the games and services that have been released, I mean, they're just poor quality, a lot of them. You know, they're releasing unfinished, and people are just... It's just... And people are just going to get fed up with these substandard games that, you know, with even bricking people's PS4s. I mean, that's just unbelievable. But, you know...
Count
I've got a good title for Anthem. I'm actually was supposed to be making a video about it. I'm going to just mention it here. Yesterday, I went to the dentist, so I couldn't. But I got a good title for Anthem, from Anthem to Requiem, because I think that's
a good one,
basically where it's gone.
I mean, Count and I spoke about. Did we record this, Count? We just speak about it, but we talked about, or we touched on the fatigue of the games as service and looter shooter genre. And I think that's come into effect pretty much with Anthem.
Yeah.
Well, I think to a certain extent, Apex kind of killed EA's own game. Like Anthem almost is like buried under the mountain
here's
of players.
This game that exists, but keep excited for the other one, please.
Yes, exactly. It's just all a bit odd.
But I agree with Jim Sterling, though. It's unsustainable. You can't sustain loads and loads of games as service games.
No, because people only have so much.
Yeah.
No, there's only so much time that people can dedicate. And usually it'll be, if it's a service game, it'll be to one service game. And that's it.
Yeah.
And
it's basically it's the MMO model for like now, effectively. It's like the progression from that kind of model into games as service. But like you say, people will only have time for one, and they'll just get fed up with just these crap games. I mean, people will buy. There is an argument that people will buy any old shit because Call of Duty sells well each year. So, but to a certain extent, they'll get fed up with that eventually.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Call of Duty might almost be done.
Call of Duty's floundering.
It
is floundering by their standards. Yeah, definitely.
I think it is actually done. When was the last time you heard sales breaking fucking records for Call of Duty in the last 3 years?
I think it broke records, but it didn't break enough records for them.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly.
I think Black Ops is like 11 or 12 million. They expected it to do like between 13 and 15 or something. I mean,
it's like, get fucked. You're the only Battle Royale charging.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Apex has got 50 million players now. It's like...
And crazy. They viewed it as, and I don't get a campaign, which is what they apparently care about.
Nobody wants to play the Call of Duty campaigns. I tried to play the World War II one. It was fucking abysmal.
They're never good campaigns, but to just blanketly remove it smacks of not even bothering to try.
Look, what they honestly needed to do was build a standalone battle royale if that's what they thought the future was going to be for a while, and then support that for like 5 fucking years, and then just keep doing your normal Call of Duties.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
That be the live service like Apex, you know?
Yeah, Apex managed to do that. They put out a free game like Activision. No, we'll put it in a paid Call of Duty game.
Yeah, paywall it off. And next year it might be made irrelevant. You know, the people don't know. So,
yeah.
I think, sorry, Joe, I know we're going fucking way off topic, but an interesting point I think to make for the games as service element is obviously the issue is, I think there's issues you can iron out easily, right? And I think that's the meaningless grind to the end game. That needs to be made productive and fun and meaningful. But the issue after that is walled off content via paying. So can that be eliminated in something like Microsoft's Service Guard, right? Like a subscription service. Can they somehow, if they've got these producers of these games in this service, can we somehow remove these paywalls for annualized content? Because if you can, that's when I think the games as service becomes a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually.
Yeah, and it could have a ready market in something like that. And I think,
Phil Spencer's talked about having episodic content on Game Pass in the form of games. So would this not perfectly fit that?
Yeah, and I think that's where they're looking to go with it. But again, the flip side of that, he's also said that he sees it as a market for smaller story-based games as well. So I think it could lend itself to all different types of games. I think that model, you go back to Netflix again. If you look at Netflix, it doesn't show one type of show.
Yeah.
It has lots of different types of show.
Yep.
And I think there's no reason why you couldn't have a service model that does that in gaming as well.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
and I think that's where we're going to head.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to be heading. We're going to start heading really heavily down that road in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. And on that note, I'm going to finish up on the 5 years and move us over to 10 years.
I suspect this section will be significantly shorter just because there's so much more rampant speculation.
Yeah, exactly.
10 years ago from now, we're 2009. What was happening in 2009 in gaming?
Fuck me. Orange Box. Get around it.
Yes, Portal. Yes, mate. Oh, that's good stuff. Oh, wait. Orange Box was 2007. That was 12 years ago.
Damn.
Bloody hell.
What was the big genre of the
best
shooter,
value
wasn't
propositions ever released?
The Orange Box. Did you say the worst?
No, one of the best.
Oh, fuck me. I was going to say. Whew.
Yeah.
No.
Fantastic.
You won't hear me saying anything bad about
God.
Half-Life.
Portal.
No.
Team Fortress.
Yeah, you're right
great.
about.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the shooter was just it had just
At the
become
peak.
the sort of the default genre.
The
in
360 shooter
2009 kind of
box.
time. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, Modern Warfare was 2007, so
Yeah.
after that, everyone was making shooters, weren't they?
It was actually the
Yeah.
360 shooter box / failed JRPG box.
Oh. Final
That's what it was.
Fantasy 13.
Loads of them on the system, no one played. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
poor
What was it called? Odyssey or something like that. Some huge JRPG that just was hyped up and never came out.
Yeah.
Oh,
A bit like Scalebound, really.
ouch.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was thinking Scalebound. yeah.
Scalebound.
Did you guys hear the rumors about Nintendo supposedly maybe reviving that?
I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I kind of like them too, but also at the same time, I kind of think, is there much point at
Monster
this
Hunter?
stage?
You know?
I think one of the devs said that's not going to happen, or it couldn't happen.
Yeah,
because he just sort
fair
of
enough.
he quashed
Well,
it.
one of the problems with it was they couldn't shoehorn it onto the platform, could
No.
they? They were having problems technically. So if they couldn't get it onto the Xbox, Christ knows how they're going to get it on the
Yeah,
Switch.
we look like Minecraft, wouldn't it? Or something?
Nintendo's like, Microsoft, we need you to finish the game so it can go to Game Pass so people can play it on the Switch.
Yeah.
What if Nintendo funds it?
Yeah. Phil Spencer's expression
Yeah,
might
well,
actually
you never
change. You know. Oh dear.
So I'm going to say a couple of things about 10 years hence. And the first thing I'm going to say is I think by then, streaming will be dominating. What do you guys reckon to that?
Yeah. Shroud
Yeah,
will have
I
60
think so.
million subscribers then.
Shroud might be dead.
Yeah, he would have died from at his keyboard.
Does anyone-
probably.
I mean, no offense to you guys, but does anybody want to watch like a 35 to 40-year-old male playing video games, probably thinning in the hair with still, instead of he's got thinned hair, but it's dyed blue?
Let's be honest.
Yeah, thanks, Sully. That's why I don't do streaming. Definitely.
Yeah, I was just about to start doing some streaming, Sully. You just killed my channel,
Sorry,
mate.
guys. I
Thanks.
said no offense, right?
There's that grandpa in Apex Legends. Apparently. 66.
Oh yeah, the three no
Oh,
scopes.
yeah.
Have you seen that? That is so good. 3 no scopes.
Yeah, the difference between him and me is I'm good though. He's good though. Sorry,
Yeah.
not me. He's good.
I
good or
can't-
really
I
lucky.
can't hit anyone, let alone kill them.
Yeah, good or really
Yeah, neither
lucky.
can I, Grant. I think I finally hit that point, Grant, where I used to see you say it all the time about being slow and Overwatch and gaming and all that, and I think I've
Yeah.
hit that point with Apex. Like, I feel like I haven't got the accuracy, I haven't got the reflexes, I always feel tired.
Yeah, I always play. I used to play late at night. The thing is with Overwatch, I got to platinum level, so I wasn't actually that bad at the game. But Apex, I just can't. I just can't
Yeah,
do
that's the same
it.
with me. I'm actually quite good at Overwatch, but yeah, no. Sorry, Joe, I know we're off topic.
Apex is incredibly fast.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
it is.
It's all about speed.
Well, it's-
So is Overwatch.
And
Yeah, but the problem with Apex
Yeah, I
is
suppose.
it's 10 minutes of running around looting, and then somebody shot you. You know, where did he come from?
I think they were very wise to try and make the Battle Royale length of the rounds shorter because they want to reduce that running around, just pointless death.
yeah.
Yeah,
But Joe, to give you my spitball for 10 years from now, what about VR?
yeah.
Ooh,
Ah.
yes,
You've done it
that's a
again.
point.
I've literally got a note here that says VR and AR.
Yeah. I think HoloLens is going to get very fucking interesting if Microsoft somehow incorporate that or
they ever bring
make
it
that a
out.
thing. Well, they've got number 2 out, right? Dev kits. And I watched
Right.
the press for that, or the announcement and demo and all that kind of stuff, and it's fucking impressive. I don't know if it'll ever transition into the gaming realm, or if it can. I don't see how it fits in with what they're doing now in traditional gaming and it becoming like a subscription service and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'd be interesting to see how cloud gaming and subscription services tie into VR, or if VR naturally integrates into the other. Like, how do they find that harmony, or do they just become one somehow? Like, I don't know. I haven't figured that one out.
No, I'm still trying to work that one out. I think we're going to see VR and AR continuing. I think obviously the prices are going to come down, so the technology is going to improve. Prices will come down as it gets untethered as well. I know that HTC are untethering their headset, aren't they, at the moment?
I think it is.
Vive
Yeah.
is now wireless,
Yeah.
or you can get
Yeah.
a wireless Vive.
Well, when that becomes a big thing across the whole the whole area, and there's no longer any wires involved, then I think it could take off a lot quicker. Because that's one of the things that puts me off using it. If you can just pick up the headset and put it on, then fine.
I think you're right. Yeah,
like you can pick up a controller.
Look at PSVR at the moment.
Because at the moment it's a pain in the ass.
I mean, there's so many wires involved. PSVR is just like ridiculous, apparently, for wires. But
oh bloody hell, you end up looking like the Predator by the time you've got it on. With all the things hanging down your neck.
Yeah.
Well, I think Joe,
which is a good thing or bad thing depending on how you look at it. But
Yeah. What I think will happen is, like you say, the further away you can get your VR headset from your PC, I think the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, you have to have it in an office with your PC, or you have to drag your PC down to the whatever space you have free, and that's not ideal. But if you could move it so you have your PC upstairs, and you can have your VR headset set up in, I don't know, maybe if you got more room in your dining room or whatever else, then that would probably be the way forward.
But I mean, what if it's all on the cloud and you're not restricted to your PC? You're just running off your router around the house.
This is true.
Yeah.
That would make it a lot more accessible, because at the moment to play VR you have to have a pretty beefy rig.
I think VR is it's obviously in its infancy, but I think it's very much in its infancy of where consoles were. So it's being restricted by its hardware, which is what video games are escaping now. Traditional video games. We're moving away from the hardware limitations, and it's opening up.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at
may
VR,
happen as well, particularly in VR though, in this instance, if you're trying to do it through bandwidth and streaming, you're gonna have a fucking quick internet connection for that to feel seamless.
But that is all going to be
and
in
it
place.
needs to feel seamless.
That will natively be in place if this cloud gaming future comes to fruition. I think.
Hopefully.
But I think in order for VR to almost transcend what it is now, I think you need to have the ultimate VR experience, right? You need a lot of room. And if you haven't got the room, you have to have some kind of multi-directional pad to run around on, which they already have in VR cafes, and that's expensive. That takes up room.
Yeah.
So they need to eliminate all of that before I think it becomes fully to fruition. Like it reaches its point where it matures, the technology. But again, I think that can all happen, but I still don't know how it integrates with what we have or what we've predicted the next 5 years. If it can overcome these obstacles, does it change video games and how we interact with them? Do we stop playing on the TV? Does the whole game change?
I think you're...
No, I think that VR and AR are still going to be niche. I think the niche is going to be bigger.
Yeah. It'll be niche, but less niche.
So we fragment them. So we have two different gaming enthusiasts, right? You go. I don't want to call them traditionalists, but I think that we just fragment and we have two different parts.
People
for
who
gaming.
are still playing on a TV or a monitor.
That's what I can't decide.
We've been doing that for literally decades at this point, so I can't imagine it going away anytime.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, you're radically changing the way people play games, which is going to be hard to get people on board with. And, there's obviously limitations now, but that's what I can't decide is there any form of harmony that exists between the two in 10 years' time? Or do they just completely stay fragmented and just go down their own paths?
I think you can improve VR by incorporating AR into it, even if it's only to, make it easier to navigate. I think we've already seen some of that with certain VR headsets. They have a camera on it or something. Is that right? Am I right on that?
Because at the moment it's quite restrictive, isn't it? When you're playing a VR game, you're too south and close. So what you're saying is, if you incorporated AR, there's more freedom of movement. There's more sort of different type of experiences you can have. Yeah.
And another, you don't have
with
to
untethering.
You don't have to go around your room going, shit, am I near something? Because you can see it.
Like I did on PSVR when I fell off my chair,
Yeah, someone taps you on the shoulder and you're like, ah!
Yeah, I've known a few times to hit my wardrobe.
If we're talking 10 years into the future, maybe even 10 years plus, can you see VR ever becoming what we see in media now, like with Ready Player One, Sword Art Online? Can you see it becoming those kinds of immersive experiences? Because if you can, I would argue that it will kill traditional gaming.
Oh yeah, if you got that level of immersion.
And not in 10 years.
Yeah, I can't see it happening soon.
Not in 10 years.
No.
Well, so that's
I
10
don't
plus,
think it's going to happen like that in 10 years.
No.
Yeah, I know. I think you're looking quite a long way in the future for that to be the case. I find it hard to see that VR would take over completely. I actually think that something like the Switch gives us a much better idea of where gaming's going to be in 10 years' time. I think that if you look at the xCloud and Google and all these people trying to use streaming services, I think you're gonna, maybe you won't have a console at all. You're gonna have a service on your phone, and then you're gonna have a dock for the phone. It'll be like the Switch,
exactly.
and then you'll put it in the dock, and then you'll just pick up a controller and away you go.
The hardware doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's much more likely to be something that we'll see in 10 years than VR being a big thing. I honestly don't think that VR is going to be something that everyone's going to have and be playing every night.
No.
I really don't.
So you think it's going to be like a real slow burn, like we've gone towards cloud gaming?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'd
do.
agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think it'll get bigger as time goes on. It's not going to go away. There's too many impediments to it becoming a mainstream proposition.
I think it's already been around long enough to prove that it's not going anywhere. It's not like curved TVs or 3D TVs or.
Oh no, I agree. I think it's still going to be here.
Motion controls, I think it's been around long enough to show. So
yeah, I think you touched on it earlier. So it's in that experimental stage where they're trying to work out what genres work well in VR. So it's like the early days of gaming is mirroring the kind of early days of gaming at the moment. I think it will be bigger, but I still don't. I agree. I don't think it will take over by any means.
Well, in terms of finding that harmony with traditional gaming, I mean, we've to a degree seen that attempted by Sony by integrating that into their consoles.
Yeah.
And, I know it's not being utilized with every single game, but I mean, could you guys see Microsoft and maybe other potential console manufacturers getting on board with something like that and it just being used as like a second screen option? Like maybe that is just the future for VR. A second screen option. You just put it on, covers your peripheral, you just sit there.
Nintendo announced a VR thing this morning.
Oh, God, count. No.
They did, didn't they? Yeah.
Gross, yeah.
Was
You
that
literally strap it to your face.
the Labo
You
thing.
strap the Switch to literally. You strap the Switch to your face.
I had one of
That's
those.
genuinely what they want you to do.
You get, what was it count? 360p per eye.
I don't think that's going to take off.
Looks like those viewfinders
Yeah,
used to get as a kid.
It's done with the Labo, by the way.
Play a
Labo
Labo point
cardboard
blank
stuff.
range.
Which is really funny because I remember Clay saying, what if Labo is Nintendo's VR?
Yes.
Which I thought, really?
It
But
is!
it seems he's right. He's right.
Yeah, it really is. I'm looking at it now. It looks really fucking weird.
Man, can you imagine the motion sickness and all the issues?
What were we saying earlier about Nintendo going in their own direction?
Oh, man.
Yep.
Count also said they have the occasional misstep.
Virtual
Yeah, I
Boy.
can say that. They're not perfect by any stretch.
Yeah.
This is a misstep. It's got to be, unless they're releasing a
Yeah.
2K Switch.
Let's just sort of remind everyone they did go in a VR direction before. It wasn't entirely successful.
Yeah, the Virtual Boy.
That's a polite way of putting it.
existed.
Oh, it's all
Yeah.
in red.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh Lord, I feel sick.
Yeah.
Can I say something about AR though? I actually think in
Yeah.
some respects,
That's
if
an
you
hour.
incorporate the if you incorporate the idea of maybe going with a dockable phone or whatever that will possibly be a way a lot of people will consume their games. I mean, we're already heading that way. I mean, I look at my cousin's, well, Dawn's cousin's kid. And he plays an awful lot of games on his phone. He's got an Xbox, but he still plays a lot on his phone. My boy plays a lot on his iPad. Or, as he gets older, he'll get a phone. He'll probably play on his phone. Younger people are playing more and more on their phone. And we've already, had things like, we talked about this earlier, Pokemon Go. And that's a kind of AR experience on a kind of low rent way. Excuse me, I'm not having a go at it. It's a good little game, but it's not, very immersive. But I actually think that AR, if you go along that route, then AR could actually be bigger than VR in some respects. On some level. What do you make of that idea?
I think AR's underdeveloped
It's
as a
got
tech.
more versatility
Yeah.
in terms of potential, but yeah, it's just it's not there yet. So maybe, like you say, in 10 years, it will be there.
I mean, I think HoloLens is making a pretty good case for it right now.
Yeah, but it's not... Can you actually go out and buy a HoloLens? That's the thing.
You can buy them.
Can you?
Yeah,
I genuinely didn't know that. That's the thing. It's such a
I'm pretty
neat
sure
thing.
it's a case of like the dev kits for the Vive, when they had the dev kits out.
Yeah.
So there might be a
do you know
waiting
why?
list.
It's because they're not marketed as HoloLens.
Yeah.
They're marketed as the HP mixed reality headset.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys remember the first demo they did like 2 or 3 years ago with Minecraft on the table, like voice calls, like they're doing it now. I think they just need to make it actual affordable and iron out all the kinks. So I think it's already here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting plenty of AR experiences on your phone as it is without strapping it to your face. So it's probably a technology it's up and coming, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's going to be a technology a bit like, I remember years ago reading around about nanotechnology and everyone's thinking, when you mention nanotechnology, people think assemblers, self-replicating machines.
I thought Iron Man, but all right.
Whereas nanotechnology is a bit broader than that. And we actually live in a nanotech world now. There's nanotechnology in bloody sunscreen, for Christ's sake.
Nanotech world, and I am a nanotech world.
And I think that's going to happen with AR, though. I think what will happen is it will become something that we don't notice coming in. Like we notice VR because we're putting our headsets on and stuff. I think with AR, on some level, there's almost two lots of AR. There's the AR where you put a headset on, like with Microsoft's stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the more kind of comes in on your phone and it just builds slowly and you almost don't notice it happening. And I think we might see that with AR.
And then there's the more use your imagination more version with Nintendo Labo.
Use your imagination, yeah. Close your eyes and imagine that.
Put this cardboard together. AR.
I'll give the cardboard its due. It's quite nice.
Okay.
I built the cardboard piano.
I'll take your word
it's
for
good.
it.
They should put that review on the box. It's quite nice. Count 2020. It's quite nice. I like it.
It's like my dad with the height of complimentary. If my dad was being at the height of complimentary, you know what I mean. He was being very complimentary. He would say, "It's all right."
Yes, all right.
Does the job.
That was it. That was if my dad was. That was high praise for my dad. It's all right.
All right. Yeah, it'll do.
King of understatements.
Oh dear.
So let's just because I want to start wrapping this up. So I just want to ask you: we've looked at 5 years. We've kind of touched on 10 years as well, and we're kind of, for obvious reasons, not quite as sure about where things are going in 10 years. If you look out beyond 10 years. Just very, very briefly, all the science fiction world and stuff like that. What wild idea do you think might come in with gaming when you go beyond 10 years? What might you think might happen there? Any ideas?
Real interactive experiences in holograms, Joe. Holodecks.
Yeah, you reckon?
Star Trek, mate.
I hope so. Holodeck.
What about neural connections?
You want to talk
actually plug ourselves
20
in?
years plus, surely it's got to happen eventually, right?
Yeah,
The Matrix,
I think it will.
It'd be like Ready Player One, except infinitely less pandering.
Yeah.
Less shit.
And product placement.
Right. Genuinely, if you don't read Ready Player One, it's terrible. The film's supposed to be a bit better.
It's
but
not.
Don't
not
read
bad.
it. It's incredibly overrated.
Yeah, it is.
I hated the film.
Oh.
I
that's
actually
right. I remember your
prefer the
tweet
book
about
to
that.
the film, to be honest.
Yeah, Ready Player One is not very good. It's
I enjoyed it.
incredibly overrated.
I enjoyed it just as mindless popcorn type movie, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I actually enjoyed it the second time round more because I wasn't expecting a
I
lot.
had no expectations for that movie. Like, it's one of those ones where you just look and you're like, that's not going to be great. You know what was great, though, which I think was maybe one of those movies? Alita Battle Angel.
I've heard good things
I
about
haven't seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Is it any good?
It is a lot of fun, and it feels like a genuine, well-told story.
I'll have to go see that,
okay.
I think.
Yeah,
I'll wait until I
surprised
see
that
Captain
one.
Marvel.
Yeah, very enjoyable. Yeah, I didn't like that one.
You said you...
I said I
Mate.
would hold my opinion.
It's got a
Yeah,
woman.
you didn't know, did you?
It's got a woman named
Sure,
after a
I'm sure you've
cheese
seen stuff.
in it. So
I won't say anymore. Go see it.
To be
Count.
fair, you didn't like Black Panther, and I quite liked it. So
I thought Black Panther
I like
was
Black
an
Panther.
average outing for a Marvel movie.
Okay.
And it had a lot of
Say so.
flaws.
welcome
I
to
have
Chip
different-
Chat Movie Hour.
Yeah, I have different issues with
Yeah,
Captain Marvel,
we've morphed.
and surprisingly enough, it has nothing to do with any feminist stuff running through it or a female lead character. It has nothing to do with that. So
You
I'm
just
putting
didn't
it
like the film. That's fine. Then.
Bloody
As long as you're not
SJWs.
being yeah, bloody women being characters in films.
How dare they?
I mean,
dare they?
I'm clarifying because I don't want people to think that was my issue with it. Because
No, that
is
is
the
fair.
prevalent
Yeah.
thing online. So
The prevalent thing online is people are moaning at it because it's got
Yeah.
a female lead, and how dare it?
How dare they?
in that respect, it was handled very well. Absolutely.
Okay, that's all right.
Should have had a non-binary librarian in the lead role instead.
Well, I mean, that'll be the next one. What are they going to do next, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, in the comics, there probably is a non-binary hero at some point.
I hope so.
I'd be incredibly surprised if there wasn't one already.
Oh yeah.
What
Joe,
we've
I'm so
seen at
sorry.
the moment in the comics, actually, it's completely off topic. What we've seen in the comics now, because comics don't sell anywhere near as well as they used to.
Such a
Yeah,
surprise.
because comics don't sell as well anymore, they use comics as a base to go, here's a character. Do you like this character? If you like this character, we'll make a movie.
Oh, fuck off. That's so shit.
That's genuinely what they seem to have been doing, and it seems to be working. So
That's about as shit as having a referendum on a major political issue. Sorry.
Can everyone please just go see
Who
Captain
would
Marvel
do
so I can
that?
actually talk about it? Far out.
Yeah.
I'm going to see it next week. So
Oh, I want to say
have
one
to
word,
wait
but I
and-
don't want to say it.
I have to wait until either Tuesday or Wednesday because that's when my Meerkat Movies works.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
It's a thing. You buy car insurance, you get a year's worth of movie tickets. Buy one get one buy one get one free.
All right. Well, I mean, I would only use a free ticket on this movie, but all right.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No, it's not that bad. I went with
I don't
people.
think he
no,
likes
it's
it.
honestly, in terms of our scale count, no, ours differ a lot, so it shouldn't worry you. I would peg it somewhere just
Near the
short
bottom.
of halfway.
Oh, okay. Well, that's higher than you put Black Panther. So
Maybe one above it. Or two.
okay, you put Black Panther really near the bottom. You really didn't.
I don't think
You
it's a good
didn't
movie.
rate it on that scale.
Yeah,
Okay, if you say
I
so.
just don't. Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry,
Yes.
Joe.
Yeah. Where
yes,
were we?
Jake, we've derailed your show talking about movies. That's-
Maybe we'll do a Captain Marvel podcast with the four of us sometime.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, you should do, yeah. Right, so I'm gonna tie this one up now because I think we've pretty much covered it and many
Like I say,
other
we started
things as
talking
well.
about movies. It's probably a good sign that it's time to stop it.
Yeah.
So, do you guys quickly, Sully or Count, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
At Gamecast on YouTube is the best place to find us, and you'll find all of our links in any description box of those videos. Whether you want to find our Twitter, Discord server, etc., that's where you'll find us.
Cool. And I'll put a link into those guys in the description, so look out for that. And
Yeah, you can find me
Grant,
on Twitter, Over the Edge YT, as my handle. I'm only going to be doing one more video on my channel, and then that's it. I may do something different in the future. I haven't decided yet.
You know what, Grant? I really think you're like PewDiePie V2. Times he said he was.
I admire your optimism.
Yeah.
I really do. Thank you.
The amount of times he said he was quitting.
we should start a campaign.
Yeah, I'm
Subscribe
quitting.
to Over
You
the
better
Edge.
check me
There you
out
go.
before I
Yeah. No, it's not. It's going to happen this time. I've just been putting it off for a while. You know.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't love that you're going, but I love the ongoing saga.
Cool.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I just keep putting myself through it, so it's got to end.
Well, I mean, Count's managing your channel now anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
fine. Yeah, you get that sub count out, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. And so you know where to find these guys, and you know where to find me because you're on my channel. And come over to Twitter. You can find me on there. And also I've got Discord. And the Gamecast guys have got Discord as well, so check that out. And as I say, I will put that all in the description. And I will speak to you guys in the next one. Bye.